Hello, Aubrey. How's it going today? Happy Thursday. We're recording today on a Thursday.
Happy Thursday to you. I have a question for you, Lindsay.
Okay.
When is the last time you tripped?
Oh my gosh. Unfortunately, I had a recent event. My brother and my niece came to ski with us on Sunday, and we had gotten all our stuff out of the car. I was already feeling a little rushed. And I also had this feeling that I kind of had to prove myself as a skier from in front of my
Mm.
brother this particular time. And we were stepping into the just still in the parking lot. Okay, we're not even on the slopes yet. We're still in the parking lot. And I'm stepping onto the shuttle bus that is going to take us to the mountain. I step in hard with my ski boot. It's slippery, but I can handle it because I've done it many times, right? I step in
Yes.
and somehow I catch my boot on the little yellow rubber thing that's sort of the
Oh, no.
ridge. And I have
Yes.
never seen a more flailing fall in my life. I do a lot of this trying to save myself back and forth, and I'm going to fall and I'm not going to fall. All of a sudden, I'm on my butt and I'm like intertwined with some guy's boot. And it was the most embarrassing one of the most embarrassing moments. I almost started crying. It was
Oh,
it
no.
was really, really bad. Meanwhile, my brother and my niece are like, "What's going on with you? Are you?"
Right, just staring in shock.
He's
Oh,
like, "Are you going to
no.
stop the lift too?" And I'm like, "No, I'm actually a really good skier." And so I don't know. It was so bad. It was so
Oh,
bad.
wow. In the
Yes.
parking lot.
Yes, and I tripped right on that little ridge. Yeah, just be
Oh,
careful
no,
if you're
that
stepping
is
in with ski boots.
epic.
Yeah.
I have tripped getting on off of a ski lift. I'm trying to get off and just fall.
Yeah, like on your
Trying to get
skis.
out of the way
Mhm.
so they don't have to stop the ski
Oh,
lift.
it's so bad, yeah, and when that happens, if you're a good skier and it happens, it's even worse. It's like, "Okay, no, I could do better than this," you know?
Right? I'm better than this. I know, right? Well, I asked you about this. I love that you have a very recent story because we got a great question about tripped and all of the different ways we use it. Tripped up. We use trip a lot in English.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm very excited to dive into this today, but make sure to hit follow, guys. If you're not following, we have 5 episodes every week,
Yes.
and you're likely missing some of them if you don't follow the show.
Yeah, I love that we're starting with this episode too, Aubrey, with the physical concept of tripping. And then we're going to extend today into what else that can mean in a more metaphorical way. So good. So good.
Exactly.
All
Yeah.
right.
So this was from a YouTube subscriber, Basil Mohammed, 8431. So
Mhm.
thank you for leaving this comment on YouTube. Do you want to read it for us, Lindsay?
Yes, here we go. So Basil says, "Hi, Jessica, Aubrey, Michelle, and Lindsay, the All Ears English folks. You guys are doing a great job cheering us on through a journey of learning that's full of excitement, fun, and a great sense of humor. The thing that stimulates us to carry on our long learning practice. Thank you a lot." Well, thank you,
Oh, I
Basil.
love that so much.
That's lovely. So good to have you as a listener. I've recently come across an IELTS energy episode when I heard Aubrey say tripped up. It's a very interesting phrase. And after a little research, I see that there's not only tripped up, but also tripped over and sometimes trip off. I'm no expert, but they pretty much sound the same, even from the overall context. For instance, I could say, "I'm terribly sorry. I don't mean to trip you up," or "I tripped over my own feet and fell down the stairs." The exact problem that I'm facing is in the usage. How can I throw in this phrase succinctly when I'm speaking to someone else? Would you please give us some information on the differences? Thank you in advance. Wishing you all the best and cheers. Nice.
Such a great specific question. I love that Basil heard this on the IELTS Energy podcast.
Yes.
If you're not subscribed or following, go and follow IELTS Energy as well because a lot of great vocabulary comes up, even if you're not studying for IELTS.
100%. I love this. And this is a very native and natural way of up-leveling your vocabulary. So we're going to show our listeners how to do it today. So let's dive right in, Aubrey. Where are we starting today?
Yeah, so we are going to share the 3 main ways that we use trip with phrasal verbs: trip up, trip over, and trip on.
Mhm.
And then we're going to do a great role play where you can see how we use all of these. So the first one, you've heard this a lot. Lindsay shared that physical tripping, but there
Uh-huh.
are other phrasal verbs that have a very different meaning.
Yes, for sure. So starting today with tripped up, right? So this is not the physical version. And we're going to come back to tripping physically in the next one. But tripping up is really to make a mistake, right, Aubrey?
Exactly. On IELTS Energy, we do say this a lot when we're talking about how students get tripped up on
Mhm.
the exam, right? It can mean to make a mistake or cause to make a mistake. We often say exam writers intentionally try to trip you up. It's almost
Yes.
like they're trying to fool you, trying to make you miss answers.
Yeah, the tricks and the traps of the exam, right, Aubrey? And
Yeah.
if our
Yeah.
listeners are interested in learning about those tricks and traps, go over and subscribe, hit follow on the IELTS Energy podcast. All right. Well,
Yeah. So, a couple examples here. You might say, I got tripped up when the directions said head north and I went south,
mhm, or
right? So, it just means I made a mistake.
exactly. Or daylight savings time often trips me up. And a lot of people complain about this, right? When we put the clocks forward and back, and the first morning, they're tired. Uh,
Yes, you guys have definitely heard me mention this. Daylight savings time definitely trips me up because Arizona doesn't change. So I have to keep track of where the rest of the world is.
yes.
Very confusing.
Yeah, you're in a weird zone there where it ends up being quite complicated.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so trip up, just to kind of make a mistake, not physically making a fall or anything like that, but just making a mistake, getting confused, falling into a trap of some sort.
Exactly,
Mhm.
right? And it is important that if you're talking about physically tripping, you wouldn't say, I tripped up on the ski hill or when
No.
getting into the bus, right?
Yes.
That only means making a mistake.
Yes.
So keep track of the prepositions we add to these phrasal verbs. It does change the meaning.
Exactly. And this next one, now we're going back something similar to the example I shared about the bus, right? Trip over
Exactly.
something or trip on something. We'll start with trip over. Aubrey, what's this one?
Yeah, so trip over, it's physically like catching your foot on something and then either falling or almost falling.
Yes.
So we wouldn't just say, "Oh, I tripped," if it's, if you're not talking about what you tripped on.
Yes.
But you might say, "I tripped over a log on the hike and twisted my ankle." So we use tripped over when we're stating what it was that made us trip.
And we can also do this when it comes to speaking. And I love this use of it, right? That's quite a
Yes.
tongue twister. I keep tripping over my words, right? And this can happen for sure when it's like word salad or something that comes out, word vomit. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. You guys hear us do this on the podcast, right? The
Yes,
more you talk, the more you're likely to trip over your words every now and then. I
exactly.
often hear when I'm like checking transcripts for keywords for the app, and I'll hear us trip over our words in a funny way. Sometimes it's always pretty entertaining.
Oh,
I'm sure
for
you guys
sure.
out there catch it as well.
And we love showing our listeners that, right? We really don't go back and edit these episodes of All Ears English or Business English because we want you to see that that's normal and that doesn't impede connection, right? You can always
Exactly.
connect, even if you're tripping over your words or making mistakes. This is how native speakers connect. All right.
Yes, exactly. But it's interesting to look at that sentence. If we're going to say trip over, we'll still say what, even if it's not physical. I tripped over my words,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So be sure to, when you use this one, trip over, you're going to state what it is that made you trip,
Yeah.
either physically or metaphorically.
But I think it's also important to say you can just say, "Oh, I tripped and fell." Right? You don't have to say, obviously, if you're going to use a preposition like over on, then you need to say the thing that was in your way. But
Exactly.
I can just say, on Sunday, it was so embarrassing. I tripped and fell on the bus and everyone stared at me and I started crying.
Exactly. Right, you can just use the verb trip by itself, I tripped.
Yeah,
But if you're going to say trip over, then you have to state what it was that you tripped over.
exactly. Exactly. And then we have one more physical tripping, right?
Yes, and Basil had asked about trip off. We don't actually use this, but we do use trip on. So
Hmm.
they might have heard trip on. We
Hmm.
might say, I tripped on the uneven sidewalk and almost fell. So
Yes.
this is very interchangeable with trip over. You're still
Yes.
going to state what you tripped on.
I love it. Or sometimes I trip on my words if I speak too quickly. So when we're talking about the same concept that we mentioned for trip over my words or trip on my words, both work here.
Yeah, exactly. And I hear both. I use both. These really have the same meaning. You don't have to think twice about should I say trip on or trip over? Either works.
And I actually think this is a fantastic resource for our listeners. If they are feeling like they're making mistakes and they're feeling awkward and they want to say something, and that would actually boost your confidence by just going ahead and saying, "Sorry, I'm tripping over my words here. What I meant to say was X." Because you're inserting that high level expression, that could boost your confidence and get you back in the game. That could probably work on IELTS too, Aubrey.
Yes, I love that idea actually.
Mhm.
And it gives you a way to sort of diffuse any awkwardness,
Yes.
and that native speakers do this as well because we trip over our words as well.
Yeah, I love that idea of using a resource, not just being quiet or feeling embarrassed or, I don't know, breaking eye contact. Instead, you go to a vocabulary resource, right?
Yeah,
So good.
absolutely.
Okay, Aubrey, did we want to mention as a quick asterisk here anything about the word tripping to trip?
Yes. You
Yeah.
guys might be aware of this. If not, we're going to share. Often, this verb or these phrasal verbs will be used for drug usage.
Hmm.
So, people might say they are tripping on a drug,
Yeah.
or trip out is used to talk about someone who is experiencing the effects of a drug. So, when you hear the verb trip or tripping, you'll just to be aware that that might be what someone is talking about.
All right, let's move into the role play, Aubrey. So here we are classmates, and you are wearing a cast on your leg. So it looks like you broke your leg. All right.
Yes. You want to start us out?
Oh, what happened to your leg?
I tripped over a rock when I was hiking and fell and broke it.
Oh, no. Sorry to hear it.
It's so weird. I feel like I've tripped on rocks a lot, but never got injured. Just bad luck, I guess.
How long do you have to have the cast?
8 weeks. Hey, by the way, were you able to complete the homework?
Oh, yeah. A few of the questions tripped me up, but then I figured them out.
I had a hard time. I may need to meet with the professor during her office hours.
Yeah. So a lot of different versions of tripping up here, tripping over, tripping on. I love it. Uh,
Exactly. And you'll see I used trip over and trip on here, both with rocks, because these are very interchangeable. We could switch these out. I could have said, I tripped on a rock when I was hiking at the beginning. And
mhm.
then I feel like I've tripped over rocks, right? Don't stress about which to use. These have the exact same meaning.
They really do. Trip on a rock, trip over a rock. It's really the same thing. So don't
Yeah.
worry too much about that. So those are
But
the
for both of them, be sure to state what you tripped on or tripped over. I couldn't just say, I've tripped on a lot,
no,
right? If
no.
so, you got to leave the preposition off and just say, I trip. I trip a lot, but this time,
Right. And like I said earlier, you could totally say, "Oh, I tripped when I was hiking and I
yep,
fell and I broke my leg." But if you're going to specify the item, you do need a preposition in there. Okay.
exactly.
Mhm. Then I said, "Yeah, a few of the questions tripped me up, but I figured them out." You asked about the homework, right?
Yeah. And this is the very different meaning of causing you to make a mistake, right? Some of these questions really tripped me up. That
Mhm.
has nothing to do with physical tripping or tripping over our words. It means
Mhm.
they were difficult, they were confusing, or they caused
Yes.
me to make some errors.
Yeah, I love how practical this episode is and how our listeners are going to be able to go out there and just implement this right away. This is so good. Aubrey, is there another episode maybe on the Business English podcast that our listeners should check out?
Yes, we talk about phrasal verbs a lot, and there was an episode I want to make sure you guys caught on Business English. It was 354. Take on your workday with this English phrasal verb. All the ways we use take on at work.
Yes.
So, whether you work in English or not, we cover a lot of great vocab over there. And you
Yes.
want to make sure to follow the Business English podcast as well.
Yeah, exactly. So just go ahead and open your search bar wherever you're listening today. Search for Business English. You'll see the yellow come up and go ahead and hit the follow button on that show too. All right. Now, I think a great way to leave our listeners is what we said earlier is mistakes are inevitable. They don't have to get in the way of human connection. We believe connection is the most important thing. And what can we do now, Aubrey, if we do make that mistake? We have an option. We have a
Yeah.
resource.
I love that idea of not hiding from it or pretending it didn't happen.
Yeah.
State it, right?
Mhm.
Name it. Be like, "Oh, I'm tripping over my words. What I meant to say was," and it diffuses awkwardness and is using impressive vocabulary.
And that builds confidence. I mean, you could, like I
Yes.
said, get yourself right back in the game by saying, wow, I just used, yeah, I made a mistake, but I didn't break the eye contact. I didn't shy away or lose my energy or slump my shoulders. I kept my shoulders back. I maintained eye contact and I used a cool idiom expression, right?
Right. Whoever you're talking to is going to, first of all, not mind that you're tripping over your
Yes.
words and then be impressed by the vocabulary you're
The
using.
recovery. I love it. It's so good. All
Totally.
right, Aubrey. Good stuff today. Guys, don't forget to hit the follow button. And thanks for hanging out on the show.
Awesome. See you next time.
Take care. Bye.